What if I told you that a decorated US Special Forces veteran, someone who had led missions from Iraq to the Pacific, once said with zero hesitation that the most dependable, fearless and toughest fighters he ever served beside were not from the elite SEALs, not British SAS, not even Marines, but Filipino soldiers. The ones who trained barefoot in the jungle, who shared their last bite of rice with strangers, who joked before raids and prayed after every fight. His name, Master Sergeant Ethan Cole, a 22-year combat veteran who had seen more war zones than most people see birthdays. But it wasn't until a joint operation in Mindanao, southern Philippines, that he realized strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, stubborn, and unbreakable. When he landed, he expected a casual assignment, help train a few local units, share tactical strategies, maybe kick back with some adobo and cold beer. Instead, he found himself in the middle of a counterinsurgency operation, where Filipino Scout Rangers hiked 12 hours without complaint, crossed flooded terrain without hesitation, and still managed to laugh around a campfire like they were home for the holidays. He remembered one moment clearly. A Filipino private, barely 19, took a piece of shrapnel near the ribs during a skirmish. Blood soaked his side, but when the medic reached for him, the boy waved him off and whispered, "Sir, help my teammate first. He's worse off, I can wait." Ethan froze. He'd seen heroism before, but this was something else. Later, when they reached base, that same kid apologized for slowing the group down, apologized for bleeding. It shattered something in Ethan, not his confidence, his ego. He started seeing the Filipino soldier not just as an ally, but as a reflection of what every soldier should be: selfless, loyal, undeniably brave. There was a woman in the unit too, Lieutenant Reyes. Sharp eyes, sharper instincts, led recon through terrain that would make seasoned rangers flinch. And during one chaotic mission, she single-handedly guided 3 injured troops to safety, all while under fire. Ethan later learned it wasn't her first time doing that, or her second. It was her 5th. He once asked her, "Why do you always go back?" She just shrugged and said, "If I don't, who will?" But the moment that stayed with him the most didn't happen during battle. It happened at a remote village. A landslide had buried half the barangay. Soldiers and locals worked side by side clearing rubble. But it wasn't just during disasters that Ethan saw their strength. There was Corporal Jaime Dea Cruz, a former fisherman from Iloilo, who joined the reserves to send money back home. Quiet, soft-spoken, always the last to eat. But when a truckload of supplies was stranded during a monsoon, Jaime tied a rope around his waist, waded chest-deep through mud, and spent hours hauling crates with nothing but grit and an old pair of boots. "Why didn't you wait for help?" Ethan asked. Jaime just smiled. "Sir, the people were hungry. We don't wait when someone needs food." Another time, during a long hike, one recruit collapsed from heat stroke. Private Ramirez, barely 5'5" and built like a broomstick, took the man's rifle and backpack, then carried him 2 kilometers to camp. When the medics revived the downed soldier, he kept asking who helped him. Ramirez didn't say a word. He just kept cleaning his rifle in the corner. Ethan walked over and sat beside him. "So you okay?" he asked. Ramirez nodded. "Yes, sir. He's heavier than he looks, though." Then, without looking up, he added, "He's my team, that's all." By then, Ethan had stopped trying to categorize what made these soldiers different. It wasn't just strength, endurance, or training. It was the refusal to let anyone fall alone. They carried each other, literally and spiritually, without needing orders or credit. That evening, Ethan was invited to join a night patrol through a narrow stretch of jungle just outside the village. The rain had stopped, but the ground was slick and the air thick with humidity. At the front of the formation was Second Lieutenant Morales, a 25-year-old with calm eyes and a firm voice. He wasn't loud. He didn't bark orders. He simply nodded, and the squad moved like they'd rehearsed the route 100 times. Ethan noticed how one soldier paused near a crossing, whispered a silent prayer while holding his rosary, then kept moving with steady breath. Further back, a nervous recruit's hand trembled as he adjusted his weapon. Sergeant Victor Abad, a quiet older man with silver creeping into his hair, stepped beside him. No yelling, no rebuke. Just a firm hand on the shoulder and a few whispered words in Tagalog. Whatever he said worked. The young soldier straightened his stance and marched forward with renewed focus. The patrol moved deeper into the dark, their boots soft against wet leaves, every man watching the other's back. Ethan, walking third from the rear, realized something strange. No one checked their watch. No one complained about the mud. No one asked how far they had left. They just kept going. Not because they had to, because they wouldn't let the others go alone. It was discipline, yes, but also something more sacred. Trust built in silence, faith carried in the dark. At one point, a little girl handed Ethan a crayon drawing. It showed two soldiers, one American, one Filipino, standing beneath a big sun and 3 stars. On it, the words, "Thank you for not leaving." That night, he sat under the open sky, looked at the drawing, and realized it wasn't the tactics or the guns. The final training exercise was supposed to be a simulation, a rescue drill in a flood-prone area near Baton. But when the real storm hit, flash floods, power outages, panicked civilians, it was the Filipino troops who moved first. No orders, no hesitation, just action. One soldier, Sergeant Alano, dove into a raging river to pull a child out of a submerged jeepney. Ethan tried to reach him, but the current was too strong. When they finally dragged them both out, gasping and soaked, the kid clung to Alano's muddy vest and whispered, "Salamat kuya." "Thank you, big brother." Later that night, Ethan stared into the fire and said something his team never expected. "I've worked with legends, but these guys, these Filipinos, they're the kind of soldiers you pray are on your side." Before he left, he stood before the unit, held up the crayon drawing and said, "You don't just fight with skill, you fight with soul. You're not just warriors, you're family. And I'm honored to have stood beside you." There was no cheer, no roar of applause, just silence. The kind that means something sacred just happened. Back in the States, Master Sergeant Cole would later tell every new recruit the same thing. You want to see what real courage looks like? Go meet a Filipino soldier. And maybe he's right, because in a world of medals, ranks, and bravado, the quiet soldier who shares his last meal, dives into the storm, and prays before battle. That soldier isn't just tough, he's something else. He's Filipino.